Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we continue our study of Divrei Hayamim Aleph. That is the first book of Chronicles. We are about to study chapter 24. We are again a reading of David's actions at the end of his life, at the end of his kingship. We are reading of how he got everything ready for the temple. So we read in the past chapters how he appointed Solomon. He gave him his job, what he's going to do, that it'll be Solomon's job to build it, but David was going to get everything he could do to prepare him. And so he got all of the stones ready, all of the silver and gold and bronze and iron, etc., etc. And in the last chapter, we read how he divided up the families of the Levites in order and gave them their jobs. So today in chapter 24, we're going to see how he divided up the families of the priests, of the Kohanim, of the descendants of Aharon. And then a little bit at the second half of this chapter that we're going to study now. Today, together, we're also going to read some of the leftover families of the Levites that haven't yet been assigned their positions in the past chapters. So let's see chapter 24. V'livnei Aharon, and to the descendants of Aaron, Machlikosam, their divisions were as follows. Bnei Aharon, the sons of Aaron, were Nadav va'Avihu Elazar v'isamar. That is Nadab and Avihu, Elazar and Itamar. Vayamas Nadav Avihu lifnei Avihem. Nadav and Avihu died before their father. Vanim lo hayu lehem. They died when they were younger. They did not yet have any children. Vayichahanu Elazar v'itamar. So it was Elazar and Itamar who became the priests following Aaron. The the story of the death of Nadav and Avihu, of course, is in the Torah. We're not going to go into it now, but they unfortunately were taken away early. So we have just Elazar and Itamar left. Vayechal came David v'Tzadok ben bnei Eleazar v'Achimelech ben bnei Itamar lifkudasam ba'avodasam. So David, together with Tzadok, who represented the descendants of Elazar, and Achimelech, who represented the sons of Itamar, lifkudatam ba'avotam. With their help, he divided them up into groups in order to do the service. And it turns out when they counted everyone up, the children, descendants of Elazar, there were many of them, l'roshei hagvorim. If you counted the heads of the families, the men who were heads of the families, min bnei Itamar, there were much more of them than the descendants of Itamar. So vayichalkum. So therefore, in order to try to even things out, they divided Livnei Elazar, the descendants of Elazar, Rashim Leveit Avot Shisha Asar. They gave them 16 families. They divided them into 16 groups. Livnei Itamar Leveit Avotam Shmona, and the descendants of Itamar, they divided them into 8 groups. So for a total of 24. And they divided them up by lot to give each one a number, which one goes first and which one goes second, etc. Ki hayu sarei kodesh v'sarei Elohim mi bnei Elazar uvnei Itamar, because they were officers, holy officers, and officers of God, right? In other words, to perform the temple service and to be representatives of God for the people. They came from both families, but since Itamar was a smaller family, they had less family groups. Vayichtevem Shemaiah ben Netanel HaSofer min Halevi, right? Shemaiah, the son of Netanel, who was a scribe, who was one of the Levites, he wrote the names of these 24 families, Lifnei HaMelech, before the king, V'Hasarim, and the officers, V'Tzadok HaKohen V'Achimelech ben Abiatar, and the 2 priests that were leading this effort, V'Rashei Havot, and the heads of the families, La Kohanim V'Lalviim, to the priests and the Levites, Beit Av Echad Achuz LeElazar V'Achuz Achuz LeItamar. So what this means is that one family per each Elazar, for each one taken from Itamar. So again we have, so the total is 24 families, each one represented by a head of the family and this scribe had written the names of each family down on a gorol, presumably a clay tablet that they mixed all together so that it should be random and to see which family comes first. These 24 families, of course, persisted through the first temple and the second temple period. And now this would be very important for those in the beginning of the second temple period time to see what the origins of these families were and how they got their positions. If there's 24 families, each one doing 2 weeks, that amounts to 48 weeks, all right, which would amount to the 12 months of the year. So, and that's how they divided, which family was in charge of the temple service at which point. So, Vayetze HaGorol Harishon Yehoyariv, the first one went to Yehoyariv, Lidaya Hasheni, the second to Yedaya, Lecharim Shli, L'Seorim Haravi'i, the fourth was Seorim, L'Malkiyah Hamishi, the fifth group was the family of Malkiyah, L'Miyamin Hashishi, they got the sixth, L'Hakotz Hashvi'i, L'Aviyah Hashmini, L'Aviyah was the eighth, L'Yeshua Hatashi'i, Yeshua was the ninth, L'Shchanyahu Asiri, Shechania was the 10th, Eliashiv Ashtei Asar, Eliashiv was the 11th, Yakim Shnei Asar, Yakim was the 12th, L'Chupa Shlosha Asar, Chupa was the 13th, L'Yeshev of Arba Asar, Yeshev of was the 14th, Levilga Chamisha Asar, Vilga was the 15th, Leimer Shisha Asar, Emer was the 16th, Lechazer Shiva Asar, Chazir was the 17th, Lahapitzetz Shmona Asar, Hapitzetz was the 18th, Lepetachia Tisha Asar, Petachia was the 19th, Lichezkeel Esrim, Chezkel was the 20th, Yachin Echad V'Esrim, Yachin was the 21st, L'Gamul Shnayim V'Esrim, Gamul was the 22nd, L'Dilayahu Shlosha V'Esrim, Dilayahu was the 23rd, L'Ma'azyo Arba V'Esrim, Ma'azyo was the 24th. So here we had the 24 families, and they came out in that order because of the Goral, so that it was no one could complain. So it was done fair and square by lot. Elef Agudasam La'Abudasam. This was their job according to the service, their worship. Lavo leveit Adonai kimishpatam, to come to lead the worship in the house of God according to their rules that they had laid down, each one according to the times. Biad Aaron abihem. That is how Aaron wanted it done, and that how his descendants should be divided up. Kasher tzivo Adonai Yisrael, as God, the Lord of Israel, had commanded him. So now, really quick, remember there were some of the sons of Levi that we didn't count out, those families. So we kind of left it in the middle last time. So we're going to mention them now. Livnei Levi Anosarim, the remaining sons of Levi. Livnei Amram, we're going to mention some more of Amram's descendants. We went into the detail. We got sidetracked by the details of the sons of Amram, which led us to discuss the sons of Moshe, of Moses, the sons of Aaron, which we just went through in quite detail. So now let's go back to the other sons of Amram. Shuvael, Livnei Shuvael Yechedyahu. One of his sons was Shuvael, and one of his sons was Yechedyahu. L'Rechavyahu, and he had another son, Rechavyahu. Livnei Rechavyahu Harosh Yishiyah. And he had a son who's the head one, the main one was Yishiyah. Liyitzhari Shalomot, Livnei Shalomot Yachat. So there's a lot of names had that Shalom, Shin Lamed Mem, the word that means peace. We had Shlomit, Shlomot, Shlomo, all kinds of forms of that name. Uvnei Yeriyahu, and of the children of Yeriyahu was Amar Yahu, Hasheni was the second one, Yachaziel, Hashlishi was the third one, Yikam Haravi was the fourth one, Bnei Uziel, Micha, of the children of Uziel was Micha, Uvnei Micha Shamir, the sons of Micha was Shamir, Achi Micha Yishia, of the brothers of Micha was Yishia. Livnei Yishia Zechariyahu, his sons was Zechariyahu. Bnei Merari. Okay, so now we'll go back to Bnei Merari. Of the other children of Merari, we mentioned Machli Umushi, were the two sons, and Bnei Yaaziyahu Beno, and the sons of Yaaziyahu was his son. Bnei Merari Yaaziyahu Beno, of the sons of Merari, of his descendant Yaaziyahu, the Vishoham, Vizakur, Ve'ivri. They had other sons with those names. L'Machli Elazar. Machli also had a son named Elazar, V'lo hayalo banim, who did not have sons. L'Kish Bnei Kish Yerachmeel. which we mentioned that the descendants of Kish married the daughters of Elazar. We mentioned that before in the last chapter. This finishes the list of all of the sons of the Levites according to their families. They also had lots in order to divide up their jobs. They were also divided in groups as to who went when. Which also corresponded to and they did this, um, which corresponded to the groups of the sons of Aaron with similar rotations. And they divided up the groups of Levites as well. And where did they do this? In order that everyone should agree and that it should be understood and accepted, it was done lifnei David HaMelech, before King David himself, v'tzadok v'Achimelech, and the two heads of the priests, the Tzadok and Achimelech, which we mentioned earlier, v'Rashei HaAvot, and all the heads of the families, la Kohanim, of both the priestly families, v'Lavim, and the Levite families, Avot Harosh, right? Each one was there represented by the heads of the families, Lumat Achiv Katan, even all the way down to the younger brothers, the heads of the families from the younger brothers. They were all there. They were all represented. So everybody understood fair and square who does what and when, so that when the temple will be built, they can all take their positions and do it. And so this was David's preparation again of the priestly families, which we just read about, and the remaining, the leftovers of the Levite families. And this concludes chapter 24. Looking forward, of course, thank you for studying chapter 24 with me. Looking forward to studying chapter 25, in which we will continue discussing the roles of the people that were set for the temple, just to give you a sense of how much preparation David did, how excited he was, and how diligent he was to set his son Solomon up for success in the temple, for the building and the operations of the temple. Looking forward to studying chapter 25 together and the rest of this wonderful book. Have a wonderful day.